So I talked to my lawyers. Apparently, Solomon Wangwe ate the money that was supposed to pay the Maasais, and they've put a restriction that he has to pay them first for them to surrender the land. The Maasais don't want to listen to any stories. They have been waiting for the longest time, and the only option left is to file the case in court. Abel Mutua hasn't responded. He's just quiet. Anyway, we officially filed the case today with DCI. They'll take over from here. I'll send you pictures when he's arrested. Thank you. To be honest, Abel Mutua's picture should not be the one circulating on social media. You should put Solomon Wangwe on there. He is the real scammer. I resigned from Grand Acres last year. Till date, they have not paid me my commission. Customers have still not gotten their titles because he has no money to pay the lawyers to process. Just advise the people out there not to invest with them again. I know you're probably wondering, what's going on here? Well, let me explain. So, Abel Mutua is smack in the middle of a filthy alleged scam following a collaboration with Solomon Wangwe, the CEO of Goshen Acquisitions Limited, also known as Grand Acres. Lakini kabla tuende mbali,
wadau nataka tukule po.
Turudi nyuma kidogo mpaka mahali haya yote yalianzia. As most of you all probably already know, Solomon Wangwe allegedly ran a 200 million shilling scam on unsuspecting innocent land buyers. He sold them a dream, took their money and delivered absolutely nothing. Almost a year after people paid for the land, the title deeds are nowhere to be found. Instead, all they keep getting are blank promises, smokes and mirrors. Refunds are not in question because apparently the company is bankrupt. Meanwhile, Solomon has since upgraded his lifestyle, shamelessly out here living his best life, buying Range Rovers for himself and his wife, while clients have been shown dust instead of land. But there's more. Former employees have had enough. They are finally exposing the rot from inside the company. Turns out, this wasn't just bad business. It was a daylight robbery dressed up as a legit investment. And now, the DCI have been involved. But now that the heat is on, suddenly Solomon Wangwe has become a man of God, spotted in church seeking forgiveness after financing his soft life off of other people's hard-earned money. Not only that, we also have to talk about influencers who helped him sell this scam. Ziki Vike, Crazy Kena, Just IV Africa, Calligraph Jones, all of them pushed this con straight into people's faces. And now that the victims are left in shambles, all these influencers are doing is silence. They're doing nothing. But why is Abel Mutua's name more attached to the alleged Grand Acres land heist more than the rest? You are about to find out shortly. The big question remains, how did this scam get this far? This is the story of how Solomon Wangwe allegedly built his empire on lies and greed. And as always, we come with solid proof from employees and victims' statements.
Solomon is this softly spoken, amazing businessman with a beautiful...
When you do a quick random search on the name Solomon Wangwe, what pops up is a polished LinkedIn page dripping with accolades about a top-tier realtor. The man has packaged himself well. His bio is a masterpiece of deception. An esteemed expert in real estate sector, well received at the Kenya Diaspora Home Ownership Summit, blah, blah, blah. All the buzzwords to make you believe you're dealing with a man of impeccable ethics and unmatched knowledge. Granted, Solomon Wangwe knows how to sell an image. He studied abroad at the Savannah College of Arts and Design, made some decent moves in the US real estate scene, then eventually came back home. In 2011, he founded Goshen Acquisition, later branding it as Grand Acres. On the surface, everything looked legit. Business seemed solid, deals were being closed here and there, and actually satisfied customer testimonials are all over the place. So to be fair, the company has done a solid work and delivered on their promise for years. And best believe, Solomon was so deliberate from day one on how he marketed himself.
Solomon, the land guy, how are you?
I want to grow my money. As 15 million per acre.
I personally remember hearing about him 7 years ago when Caroline Mutoko stamped him as a man of unquestionable ethics and vast knowledge in land investment. And that's the thing, Solomon didn't just pop up overnight. This man played the long game. His reputation was carefully crafted, and for years, Grand Acres floated around without any major red flags.
Solomon just doesn't sell you land. Solomon makes it his business to understand about where.
But then something shifted. Late 2023-2024, the entire operation switched gears. Suddenly, top-tier Kenyan influencers were all over this brand, pushing Grand Acres as the safest land deal investment in the country. Even Sauti Sol did a promo song and documented the four of them buying land with Grand Acres. As we've now come to learn, this wasn't just some casual buy land with us campaign. It was an elaborate, well thought out scheme that, looking back now, feels like it had been plotted so long ago. However, truth is like pregnancy. You can't hide it forever. And in January 2025, Solomon Wangwe's little fantasy world came crashing down. Believe it or not, Abel Mutua is the one who unknowingly blew the whole thing wide open. It started with Abel's frustrated followers flooding his inbox, people who had bought land through Grand Acres after being charmed by Abel and Judy, glowingly endorsing Solomon Wangwe and his company. Important to note that these weren't just random buyers. These were people who trusted Abel because he personally vouched for Solomon, made videos documenting the entire process of them buying land with the Grand Acres, all to prove that he was the real deal. Please, let's not forget how fierce Abel was on this. He even went full Rastafarian mode, composing an entire reggae song about buying land with Grand Acres, singing Solomon praises like he was the messiah of real estate.
They say music is a universal language. Na since kila mtu anaspire kununua land safely, wacha tuwapatie a musical Grand Acres checklist ya kununua shamba kwa hii country bila wasiwasi. With me is none other than the land connoisseur himself, Minati Bila Ready, Teddy wa Mashake, Ras Solo.
But here's where it gets even wilder. Abel has a massive following in the diaspora. He even has a whole segment on his channel called Mkurugenzi Diastories, where he tells insane stories of Kenyans abroad. And guess what? One of his biggest recurring themes is diaspora Kenyans getting scammed when trying to buy land back home. You cannot make this stuff up. Abel himself once said that the only reason he partnered with the Grand Acres was to protect his diaspora audience from being swindled by shady relatives and crooks. And yet here we are. His people followed his lead and now they're out millions while Solomon is somewhere living his best life. Please don't get me wrong. I am not saying Abel was part of the alleged scam. I'm just showing you why he was way deeper in this than the rest of the hired influencers that Solomon worked with. Anyway, when things fell apart, his referrals came running back to him demanding answers, but he stopped responding. And as a true Mkurugenzi myself, I'll tell you this, Abel is among the very few influencers who respond to DMs. It doesn't matter what you text him, he'll acknowledge it and he'll respond. And yet clients are now out here with receipts of him ignoring this. Now, this is where I keep saying influencers need PR teams, because against all common sense, Abel ignored these complaints. The same people who only invested their hard-earned money because he convinced them were now begging for answers. And what did he do? Silence. But that wasn't even Abel's worst mistake. Oh no. The moment he picked a side and chose to defend Solomon Wangwe, that's when all hell broke loose. By now you all know how this goes. The victims, frustrated, stranded and ignored by both Solomon and Abel, they did what any smart Kenyan does in this digital age. They ran to the only name that makes influencers sweat bullets. Edgar Obare. And listen, hate him or love him, Edgar is not your average blogger. He does his due diligence. So before airing the scandal, he actually reached out to Abel Mutua to get his side of the story. But guess what? He blocks Edgar. Wrong move. Very, very wrong move. Here's a very quick backstory of this particular victim who had reached out to Abel. He had bought land for 1.2 million Kenya shillings, and since he wasn't in the country, he had entrusted his cousin in Kenya to handle the process with Grand Acres, thinking everything was above board. But when things went south and both he and his cousin were left hanging, they had no choice but to take it to Twitter and expose the scam for what it was. And y'all, just days after their story started gaining traction, Solomon Wangwe did what all guilty men do. He tried to cover his tracks. You won't believe how he did it. This so-called top-tier esteemed expert in the real estate sector and a man of impeccable ethics allegedly paid a Twitter influencer called The Witches to fake an apology and praise the company. Guys, you heard me right. A paid-for, staged, scripted apology. So basically, Witches was supposed to talk as if he was the victim, and here is what he wrote. Nimekuwa Grand Acres leo, we met in their lawyer's office as they're setting up their new office and received the title deed today. There was a great misunderstanding in communication on the transaction, including my involvement with the transaction. This afternoon, we clarified the issue and we are planning to do a site visit and fence our land. I now understand why we chose to purchase land with them. Wako legit. Now, notice who was the first person to jump into the comments. Abel Mutua. Right under that tweet he wrote, wa after mmeshaina mimi siku mzima yenyewe, the internet is not for the faint of heart. And right under that someone wrote something along the lines of, niko huku home nasikia tunes za headline hitters kwa kejani. Well, for those who don't know, headline hitters is one of Abel Mutua's segments on his channel. So basically this person was just propelling the conversation to get way more out of the land issue. And of course Abel Mutua types a response of some sorts. You all see what's happening here, right? The real issue was being deflected. And what are the odds that Abel was just conveniently on Twitter waiting to be the first person to respond to this staged tweet? There's a chance even Abel was duped by Solomon, and by the time he was writing this response, maybe he had not even known he was being used as a part of this alleged long con. And do you know, people actually believed Owiche's tweets, that the whole thing was just a mere understanding and now things had been sorted out. I need you all to stay with me because I'm about to come in with the receipts. Don't forget, the victim here is the one who lost 1.2 million. So him, the real buyer, his cousin and Edgar Obare himself all hit back with a rebuttal, and that's when things started to look really bad for Solomon and Abel. The real victim clarified that there was no sort of meeting that happened, no refund had been issued, and there was no form of communication. It was all after this victim teamed up with DCI that we got to learn how deep this scam was. Turns out several other victims had been scammed as well. Now let's check the receipts, guys. So here the victim says how they've been scammed, to which he's asked if he knows other people who bought, and he says, not really, but I have been following up with DCI, and apparently the land was supposed to be 43 acres. Not even one title has been issued, and apparently there's a bunch of complaints at DCI. And when asked if he had contacted the company, Grand Acres that is, he said yes, he had contacted them, but they had vacated their offices. No one is reachable, but his lawyer managed to get hold of Solomon Wangwe, the CEO, and he told them that the final meeting with the landowners was on Saturday morning. This client turned victim also said that it was from this communication between his lawyer and Solomon that he realized that Solomon had no money for refunds, and yet he was still trying to sell more projects. From then on, Solomon Wangwe and the Grand Acres just kept sending this client some emails, but nothing substantial. And after these chains of meetings that Solomon claimed to have been arranging, but yet nothing was happening, finally this client had something from his lawyer, and he said apparently Solomon Wangwe had eaten the money that he was supposed to use to pay the Masais, the landowners, after which he was supposed to now sell this land to the buyers from whom he had already taken the money. Now, the Masais, the landowners, had put restrictions that he had to pay them first before surrendering their land, and did not want to listen to any stories, and that they had been waiting for the longest time, and the only thing left was to file. He also says that Abel Mutua hadn't responded and he's just quiet. Also, this client added that this case was now officially filed with the DCI. He was even hoping that Solomon would have been arrested immediately. He finishes off by saying, Hana pesa, amekula yote. This is someone who has been working away from home, miles and miles away abroad, sending his hard-earned 1.2 million shillings only for this man to turn out and eat it. Oh, there's more receipts. Apparently, Solomon Wangwe knew things were now getting thick, and once he caught wind that DCI was looking for him, this man went into hiding. This client also confirms that that fake apology that was put up by Owiches was nothing but pure impersonation. He had done no such thing. He also added that DCI had confirmed that Solomon had so many cases, but all Solomon Wangwe was doing was paying up guys to cover up their dirty businesses. This is also where Abel Mutua started looking really suspicious, because this client, I think for the 10th time, says he has even written an email to Abel, but he has not responded or done anything. This was the same Abel who, if you can remember, was already supporting Owiche's tweet. That was just one client, guys, but just so you know he wasn't lying, a former employee of Grand Acres also came forward again with receipts and proved that this company had sunk even at the time Solomon Wangwe was busy advertising for people to buy land. It was also at this point that probably Abel Mutua decided not to comment on this matter or on behalf of that company, because his reputation was highly at stake. Let's look into what this employee had to say. He writes, to be honest, Abel Mutua's picture should not be the one circulating on social media. You should put Solomon Wangwe's on there. He's the real scammer. I resigned from Grand Acres last year. Till date, they have not paid me my commission. Customers have still not gotten their titles because he has no money to pay the lawyers to process. Just advise the other people out there not to invest with them again. And when asked what was going on in the company, this ex-employee said everything was running smoothly until 1st of October 2024. The office at Riverside Square at Kofisi had to be closed down due to rent arrears of up to 10 million. This actually fact checks what the client had said above earlier, that the offices had been closed down. Anyway, let's proceed. We were told we will be working from home effective 1st October. After 1 week, I got a notice that they will not manage to pay my full salary and they can only pay half. That's when I decided to resign. Customers who bought land in 2023 till date have no titles. Most projects have no beacons and no roads, but is still collecting money from customers. And if you know Edgar very well, you know he'll want proof that this person actually worked for Grand Acres. So he asked for proof and also asked what Solomon was doing with the money if he wasn't paying rent nor delivering clients' lands. And so this ex-employee shared their LinkedIn profile, which was not public. And to respond to what Solomon Wangwe was doing with the money, he said he's been busy buying new Range Rovers and Land Cruisers for himself and his wife. That right there is one of the vehicles. And also this ex-employee said they'd be ready to provide any form of information as long as their identity was not revealed, which makes sense. Remember, we had mentioned earlier that at some point Solomon Wangwe had a really crazy celebrity endorsement. This ex-employee also addressed this when he was asked why in his page about buying land had the biggest celebrity endorsing his company. So we wanted to know what really went wrong. And he was also asked about Solomon Wangwe's current whereabouts. He said, or she, I don't know, everything went wrong when he started sponsoring influencer events. For Abel Mutua, 5 million, Crazy Kenna, 10 million, Bien's tour, 8 million. Actually, if you can remember, I think it was Abel Mutua's last year's live recording. It was in partnership with maybe other companies, but I particularly remember Grand Acres. And his influence was heavily felt on that show. He was mentioned quite a couple of times. The process of buying land was put up there for several minutes. It was a whole conversation right before the show, or probably in the middle, but yeah, apparently he sponsored that show with 5 million. Crazy Kenna's last year show was the same. That is 2024 or maybe 2023 if I'm not wrong, but yeah, he actually sponsored that with a whopping, a staggering 10 million. And yeah, now we come to know that he also sponsored Bien's tour with 8 million. Yeah, and I remember it was around the time Bien was releasing his album, and he had a lot of press tours, South Africa, wherever, if you can remember that. Yeah, apparently 8 million of that 8 million from Solomon Wangwe was used to facilitate that. So actually, when clients were sending money, all he was doing was sponsoring these events, probably hoping to get more customers. And that is when things went south, because he was just splashing money instead. About his whereabouts, he's apparently just at home in his Kileleshwa apartment, which, if we're being honest, let's just say the DCI maybe do not want to arrest him or something, because finding him cannot really be that hard. Or maybe they're also under his payroll. I mean, we all know how Kenya works. So yeah, that was a lot of money that was used in exchange. He was endorsed by these celebrities. There's a point even Sauti Sol made an anthem for the company. So when asked how many clients are affected and did not receive titles, this is where the bombshell is, guys, because turns out over 200 plus clients don't have titles, not just this one. So this thing is just tipping right now. And do you know what's interesting? That in a good month, they'd make upwards of 60 million shillings. 60 million. Again, if you can remember one thing with Grand Acres, they were never selling tiny pieces of lands. I think towards the end, maybe when he was now getting broke or something, is when you could get maybe 50 by 100 or something. All along, it was large tracts of land in acres. So maybe per client, it was always maybe 5 million going up. It was never the 50 by 100 kind of plots. Anyway, the ex-employee then goes on to say nobody knows where the money went, and as of now he's in church seeking forgiveness. This is a typical Kenyan politician move, where they steal your money and then go to church and you pray for them, because apparently they have apologized. And in case you're wondering why people have not spoken out, this ex-employee also addressed this, saying that it's probably because when they asked for progress on their purchased lands, Solomon, being the spoken guy he is, have been speaking to most of them, telling them the delay is not with him but the county or something to release the titles to him. Pretty much just convenient excuses here and there all the damn time. As of the time I was recording this video, Solomon Wangwe was still in hiding. Clans have still been scammed. Title deeds are nowhere to be seen, and refunds, oh please, Grand Acres offices are literally a ghost town right now. Their social media pages are just as deserted as the clans in their DMs. Their last YouTube video, interestingly, is 2 months ago, and they were still advertising and marketing as if nothing had happened, as if they were not going down. So yeah, pretty much Solomon Wangwe was still looking for more money to scam you guys. Now, I could be wrong, but it definitely looks like they only stopped when they started getting exposed, because the timeline checks out too perfectly. On the flip side though, over on Grand Acres Instagram, it's business as usual. They even had a Valentine's offer for land selling between 5 to 7 million. Imagine gifting your bae a scam. Solomon's personal Instagram though, crickets. There's nothing much going on there. But before we wrap up, I need to call something out because somebody has to say it. Look at this post made by Ivy Africa. She wrote, I am unapologetically Team Grand Acres. They passed my due diligence with the flying colors and personally bought 2 pieces of land with them. We are so used to shortcuts in the land development industry that when the right channels are followed, we wonder and panic. Yeah, I'm sticking with these guys. First of all, why is she Team Grand Acres? Since when is a fraud a sport? It wasn't about taking sides. If money was paid but land was never given, and these are cases from 2023, that's just that. It's not about whose team you are on. So just like Abel Mutua, Ivy Africa came out gun blazing, ready to go to war to defend Solomon Wangwe like her life depended on it. If you actually listen to these influencers, the argument is basically, well, I got my land and I got paid handsomely, so these 200 plus Kenyans who are still waiting for their title deeds must be lying. Look guys, 2 things can be true. Solomon needed influencer endorsements to sell his scam, so of course he won't double cross them. I mean, it's common sense, but somehow these influencers can't seem to grasp that. And these kinds of tone-deaf, detached responses are exactly why influencer marketing is flopping globally. Nobody trusts them anymore. They are so stuck in their own little world that they can't see what's happening right under their noses. Anyway, y'all, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Who's to blame here? The alleged scammer, the influencers, or the victims who trusted them? Also, what do you want me to cover next? Please let me know. But in the meantime, I need you guys to go back and watch my story on Aziad Nasenya. Aziad Nasenya is now an upcoming woman of God, conveniently weeks after being exposed by former Kienyeji, Mungai Eve, and also ex-friends and clients who apparently she borrowed money from to refund in days but have not since, and now she's nowhere to be found. If you haven't watched that video, trust me, you want to check it out.